before we march in this very park and square without going anywhere else. So please bear with us for a few minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I do not want to take a lot of time here, but can I first give a shout out to people from occupied Kashmir, from the valley, who showed up today, even though when they go back home, they will cry tonight because they haven't spoken to a lot of their loved ones, but they still found resilience and courage to come all the way and stand here. So let's give a round of applause to the people of the Valley of Kashmir who have not talked to their family for 2 weeks and they're still here. Let's give a round of applause to the people of Azad Kashmir who have to put up with the shelling every day and night, who go down into bunkers, who hide their faces in bunkers because they don't know if the shell is going to land on their house or not. Before I start my 2 minutes of speech that have been given to me, I want to let you know that I represent simply the people of Kashmir and nobody else. I have no agenda, I have no motive, I have no affiliation. I was born in Kashmir in the 80s. I saw what happened in the 90s, and I'm here to talk about from that perspective. But before I go there, I want to make sure you're all engaged with me. So I want you to chant with me what the kids in Kashmir have been chanting for the last 30 years. When I was 5 years old, I heard this chant and I remembered it, I memorized it. I want you guys to chant with me. हम क्या चाहते? आजादी। हम क्या चाहते? आजादी। हम लेके रहेंगे आजादी। हर दिल की धड़कन आजादी। हर चलती सांसें आजादी। तुम खुद ही दोगे आजादी। हम लेके रहेंगे आजादी। हम मर के रहेंगे आजादी। तुम खुद ही दोगे आजादी। तुम खुद ही दोगे आजादी। हर दिल की धड़कन आजादी। हर चलती सांसें आजादी। हम क्या चाहते? आजादी। This is something that has reverberated the mountains of Kashmir for the 30 years. And if there is one chant that people in Canada, Europe, and US should listen to, is this: Hum kya chahte? Azadi. Let me give a couple of perspectives of what is happening in Kashmir. Yesterday, my mom told me that her cousin was shot in the eye. When I got home yesterday, my mom was very sad and she wasn't talking to me. And for a second, I thought it must have been something I did. But she told me her cousin lost his one eye because on the day of Eid, he was shot in his eye by an Indian army man with a pellet gun, and he lost one eye. He happens to be the only breadwinner in the family. His father passed away 20 years ago. That's the kind of reality Kashmiris are living with day in and out. I have been to Kashmir 3 times in the last year. 3 times. I've had the privilege of going there 3 times in the last year. I don't know if I can go again after what I'm going to say today. But the last 3 times I went to Kashmir, every time I saw this wave of death in the air and on the faces of the people. You think we didn't know Article 370 was going to be revoked? You think the people of Kashmir did not know that Article 35A was going to be revoked? You think the people of Kashmir did not know there was going to be an RSS agenda being put into action? You think we found out yesterday or last week? We have known this agenda for years and years and years. The current Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, visited Kashmir in the early 90s. The blueprint of what is happening in Kashmir was not laid last week or last month or last year. It was laid 30 years ago. And you know what I am angry at? It's not the Indian government or the Indian army. It's the inaction of the people sitting here and standing here. It is easy for all of us to come out in thousands today. But you know what? For the last 20 years, we've been marching here, outside the Indian consulate, outside Queen's Park, outside the city hall, and outside the embassies. And very few people from Kashmir or outside of Kashmir have shown up. There are days I have stood outside the protests in Kashmir and I have seen 5 people from Kashmir show up and 10 people from Pakistan show up. You know this has been going on for 30 years. 70,000 people have died. Do you think that happened overnight? And I'm not here chastising anyone because I need to, and I appreciate that you're here today, but I want to make sure that today when you go back home and next week and next month, you're not going to forget about this. There's an election coming up in Canada. What are you doing about it? We have a new government coming up in 2 months, a new Prime Minister and a new Foreign Affairs Minister. What are you going to do about it? There's a new government going to be in US in a year. What are you going to do about it? Are we only going to show up at protests and hold rallies and forget about it? Because trust me, every single day of last year, when Kashmir was not in the news, when it was not on CBC, when it was not in Toronto Star, people were dying in South Kashmir, one by one by one. When I went to Kashmir 6 months ago, and I met some of our elders who had been in the resistance movement, they're now in their 60s and 70s. They cannot step out. They don't have the energy. Do you know what they said to me? They said, we need a little bit of breathing space till our younger ones grow up, till our teenagers become adults, so that they can carry this resistance. We're dying in numbers. We're dying because of old age. Give us 5 years, give us 10 years, so that our young ones can grow and we put them in our resistance movement. This has been happening day in and out, believe me. So do not forget for a second, if this limelight goes away that you see today in the media, that this is gonna die. India is there in insane numbers, 700,000. There is no place on earth that has that ratio of army to civilians. Even US, at the peak of its war in Afghanistan, had 150,000 people. India has 5 times that number in Kashmir. It is a brutal occupation. I see that every 3-4 months when I go there. So I urge all the Pakistanis in this audience, talk to your government, talk to your